Yo. So I made paper clay. I don't know if I managed to find the link for that. I struggled to find the link for that paper clay I was using. So if you want to know how I made it, text me. I'll tell you how I made it. Or show you. Yo. So anyways, I wanted to do something with the paper clay. Something kind of cosplay-ish. And I wanted it to be like wands, staff, something like that. Well, yeah. So anyways. And then I thought, well, how am I going to make a base? So I found a stick. I don't know what kind of stick that is. It might be the bamboo. I think it's a bamboo stick. Yeah, that's definitely what it is. And then cardboard. And I cut out a moon shape and then tied it on because I didn't want tape under there because I don't know how tape and drawing with the clay work, because this clay is new to me. So it's all really a test. So yeah, I was trying to avoid using the hot glue too, but you know, hot glue is life, so that definitely wasn't getting used. I wanted like little strings that are going to hang out from the inside of the scepter, whatever I'm calling this. So I hot glued 3 strings to it, really long, so that you have plenty to tie with and can trim it later if you want. So yeah, that's the base for that one. And then just kind of play with it and see what size it feels like. And I have this bowl of little stones that never get used, and I kind of decide like which stones do I want to go on it in the end. So I choose some obsidian and some quartz that will go in it at some point. Little handfuls of those out of my fun bowl. And I also have the marbles in that bowl because I'm doing 2 staff scepters. You know, okay, how about this is a scepter and that's a staff? I don't know. What's the definition of any of those things? So that's my clay. That's my lumpy, funky clay. Just kind of shove it onto the cardboard. The cardboard will get soggy and start to shape differently, so you have to be careful to keep it flat, or not, depending on what shape you're going for, but be aware that it will be soggy and limp. So yeah, and then just do a thin layer too, because you need all the moisture to come out in between every step so it doesn't mold before you can coat it. So I did this step and then I let it dry for, I think, almost an entire week, because there was a few days left from last week. So anyways, this isn't sealed. I didn't seal it yet because I was out of time for this week. So I'll seal that eventually. It needs to dry for a couple more days before I feel comfortable doing that. Just because this is a very water-based clay, you have to be careful. And technically, you're supposed to be able to bake the clay to dry it faster, but I don't want to bake clay and bamboo and cardboard and all this other crap that I'm using, so I'm just letting it air dry. It's very dry, no humidity at this point, so doing stuff that needs to dry is not a problem if you have patience. So after I put all the clay down, I try to shove the little gems into it. And I realized when I was making my second scepter that putting clay around the gems to hold them in was a better idea, because these ones I wound up needing a little bit of super glue reinforcement. And then it's a little funky. You'll see. Maybe. I don't even know if that shows up in this video. But, hold on. Okay, anyways, I don't know why I got that message. Lost my train of thought. Sticking my gems in my squishy paper clay, and then I let that dry and I come back to work on the second one. So I want to look at all of the marbles to pick which marble I think would be the most sceptery, because I wanted to do this scepter type situation. So I glue with hot glue. It doesn't stay with the hot glue. Maybe I should use super glue, but it stayed for a moment. I knocked it off the hot glue pretty quickly though. Once I added the wet paper clay, it just wanted to fall off. So as the clay dries, it's now sturdy. I did wind up giving it a little bit of super glue here and there just to be completely safe, but it was pretty damn sturdy if you put it up nicely and like you're really careful as you let it dry. So I wanted this to be, I didn't want to use up too much of the clay, so I wanted to like have little spots here and there, so it was, kind of Dumbledore's wand-ish, where it's like lumpy and it's not completely smooth stick. It's a wobble. So I did whatever. And then, like I said, here I chose more gems for this one. But I'm putting actual clay around each gem so they're like held in. So here I come back when they're dry. And it gets dry like rock hard. So I don't know if I showed that where I knock it on the table, but it's solid. So I gesso before I try to put paint on because I did a test without gesso and it just looks funky. So definitely needs a base coat. I like this. If you don't have this, white paint would work just fine. I like this. So be very careful not to get it on the gems. I kept getting it on the gems and having to wipe it off. It is what it is. I still need to take a little bit of alcohol on a swab and wipe the gems and the marble just to make sure there's no residue. So this isn't 100% finished. It's like 90% finished. I also try to do both sides at once because I'm a lazy turd and it works for most of the project, but there's bits and pieces where trying to do both sides at once didn't work, like the super gluing, and they wound up getting stuck to the desk. That's my bad. I don't use super glue that much, so I just didn't think that, hey, it needs more than 2 seconds to dry. Ow. Anyways, sorry. I lost my train of thought. Having difficulties lately. I see the pain management person kind of soon. I think it's still a few more weeks. Feels like it's forever. It's always forever. I had him on schedule and then they randomly changed my date. Didn't call me, didn't even try to tell me. And I saw it in my portal when I was trying to see the date of a different appointment. And then I had to ask them what happened. And they said, oh, we tried contacting you. No, you didn't. So who did you call? Who did you call? And leave a message about my health stuff because you didn't call me or the other number that's verified on the account for you to call. So who the hell did they call? Not me. So anyways, they changed the date of that on me. So the pain's just not going well. Really, none of my doctors are all that responsive. The neurologist is, so I appreciate him and his bluntness. Most of the doctors, when you go see them, they'll just tell you things like, well, what did the last doctor tell you? It doesn't matter what they told me. What are you here to tell me? This is your job now. Pretend the other doctors don't exist. You tell me your information. But no, none of them want to tell you anything. It's tragic. It feels tragic. So anyways, ranting aside, when this stuff's all dry, you use just a nail filer to rub it just a little bit and it smooths it out really well and it feels nice. Or you can use sandpaper, but you need it to be a really soft sandpaper, like a nail file. So I personally wanted to I wanted it to be kind of like a stone look. So I'm using watercolor paint that has shimmer glitter so that I can do like a blue undercolor on one and a red undercolor on another. So that's my first coat there of the watercolor, and that dries pretty quickly, and you can do tons of coats of the watercolor all at once and just let that dry out by itself as like a whole big event. But when you want to use the acrylic, you got to let the acrylic dry before you then use the watercolor, or else you'll just spread your acrylic around in a funky way. So I start with this shimmer blue watercolor undercolor on the whole of the scepter. And then the wand thingy, I wanted to do red as my undercolor. And then I take green acrylic for both because I feel like it's a nice stone undercolor. So I kind of, what is that thing called? Sponge brush the green around all over on both of them to give them both that kind of look. Anyways. Yeah. And then I use more watercolor over the top of it. I use silver-ish, like a shimmery silver, a couple of times just to give it like a nice deep. I've got multiple different colors of the silver shimmer. I used almost all of one of the colors for a very specific project that is a secret. Anyways, So that's my palette of shimmer watercolor. So you use as many color layers of the gray as you want until you feel like you've got the look that you're going for. Like, you know, you see how it starts off with the very solid, obvious green on the sides like that. You just keep going over it and over it and over it with the watercolor until it's blended in a way that looks even. Not even's not the right word. Not fully even, because you want to have the different colors here and there. I have no train of thought. My side hurts. I can't think. I don't know if anything I said made sense, but yeah, just keep going over it with your grays. And it would have been easier if I just glued the stones on after, because painting around them was not easy. I kept trying to wipe them off. I had so much paint all over my hands. But it was fun. I also needed some kind of a block to put them in or something, but I don't know, drying them on the desk seemed fine. They just took up a bunch of space, which, you know, whatever. They dry pretty quickly if all you're using is the watercolor paint. It's pretty quick. I mean, if you've used a whole bunch of colors, you need to give it a good few minutes, but it dries really well. So then let's say, you know, you're done with the thing and you're calling and done. You want to Mod Podge it or use, what is that sealant spray we used to have? I don't remember what it's called. Some kind of sealant spray. Shellac. You're going to use something like that so that no moisture gets into it. Well, first you got to wait for all the moisture to get out of it. And then once it's fully dry, you need to coat it so that if it gets humid or if it gets rained on or something, it has a fighting chance of surviving. They're also pretty sturdy, but I wouldn't be like rough with them. If you wax someone with this, it'll fall apart. The top will fall off and a little piece slide down. You know, some of the gems would fall off, things like that. So you can wave it around and play with it for, God, years if you're relatively careful, but yeah, be aware of its limitations. It's also extremely lightweight. It looks so much heavier than it is. It doesn't weigh anything. Me and my mom were talking about how funny head things you could make out of it. And this, as it is, you could put one on each side on a hat. It would be no weight. You'd feel no weight on your head. Other than the weight of the bamboo stick, I mean, there's really no weight going on here. Yeah, so imagination is the limitation here, and also space, I guess. I mean, if I had more space, I know exactly what I would make. So here's all my feathers. Are these called feathers? Those are called feathers, right? I have a bunch of those for various craft purposes, and they're all real, from various different birds. And there's a specific green one that I wanted to use. So I kind of centered the whole project around that green feather and what colors I wanted to use for it. So I chose 3 different feathers to tie into my 3 strings. And then I went and super glued everything on both the wand and the scepter. My super glue was almost empty, which was a bummer because after I realized that I super glued it to the table, I didn't have any super glue left to fix it. That's a bummer. I need more super glue. So I tied on the feathers by like just twisting it up around. First make a knot and then twist it up around and then make more knots on, if that makes sense, so that you hold the feather in by its stem. Is that thing called a stem? Don't quote me on words. But yeah, you get the gist here. And then I couldn't really take good pictures of it because it's kind of big, so it's a little hard to show the details. But yeah, I mean, it's a product. You can do stuff with it. You could paint it however. It reminds me of those Sailor Moon wands. I mean, sort of. Mine's. Ugh. But you could have made one out of that. So anyways. Ugh. Bye. It's been so long.